Well, good evening, everybody. It's meteorologist Joe Chaffee on this Saturday night. It's 8 o'clock Eastern Time, and we are, as a whole, across the country, weather conditions are actually fairly quiet. There are only some pockets here and there where we are seeing some weather, and some of that happens to be in my neck of the woods. We've got some winter weather advisories to talk about. Looks like some inland areas could get into some freezing rain and sleet and maybe some wet snow. I think this is going to be elevation driven. So if you are 500, 1,000 feet above sea level, if you're as you go north and west into New Jersey, particularly in the northwestern counties, I think that's where you're probably going to see some accumulating snow. The same holds for the Hudson Valley along and north of Route 84. And if you just go out on Route 84 further to the east, we're talking northwestern Connecticut. Just want to say a quick hi to those of you coming from my Facebook page, Meteorologist Joe Chaffee, and those of you who might be watching from my weather app for Android mobile devices. You can download that for free on Google Play. Just search my name right there, Joe Chaffee, or meteorologist Joe Chaffee, and just download it and enjoy it. We are still working on the iPhone one. I know I've been saying that for a while now, but as I pointed out yesterday, it can be a very long process trying to get uh, Apple and Google to approve your stuff. So that's basically what we're waiting for. So let's get going here about with regards to the weather that's going on tonight, and we're going to also take a look at the long range a bit later on. This situation that we have comes, in some ways there's some similarities to what happened back in November. In other ways, there are some differences. I think the main difference and the most important difference is the fact that the system that we had in November came with a ton of cold air relative to the time of year anyway, and it a high that was in New England that wedged down the coast and just kept cold air in long enough. All it needed to do was be in there for a couple of hours, and we got a burst of warm advection moisture that moved northward, got into that cold air, and the result was a 3 to 6 inch snowfall along the coast and a 6 to 12 inch snowfall inland. This one's different. This is really more about the upper low. There's not any cold air to speak of. There isn't any around now. There's some colder air up in upstate New York, but it's of the shallow variety coming out of what I would refer to as a dirty high. It's not a clean Canadian high or an Arctic high. It's just the cold air that sort of settles in southeastern Canada and upstate New York, and that cold air is draining southward. But you can see where the winter weather advisories are up. The northern counties of Pennsylvania, the northeastern part of the state, in New Jersey. For those of you who watch locally, we're talking Warren, Sussex, and western Passaic County. And in the Hudson Valley, we're talking Orange, Putnam, Dutchess counties, Litchfield County, and Connecticut on the Connecticut side. And then it goes up the Hudson Valley through north of Albany, including western and central Massachusetts, southern Vermont, and then those advisories extend backward toward central and parts of southwestern New York State. We also have some flood watches and some flood warnings that are up for northeastern Virginia and into Maryland from the heavy rains that have been going on there, and also some flood watches still over parts of northwestern West Virginia and into southeastern Ohio. Uh, Elsewhere, I'm using a new tool tonight, by the way. I put the link up on the chat. I'll put it up again for those of you who might be joining late. It's a fun tool. It's called Now Coast, and it's from the Weather Service, so it's absolutely free. So I'll just pop it up on the chat here. Here we go, and enjoy it. There's all sorts of variables you can use on this: satellite, radar, warnings, watches, webcams. Water quality, river gauges, air quality stations, etc. Going out to the west, you can see we're covering a whole lot of geography here where there is nothing going on. It's just very, very quiet. And out on the west coast, we've got one county in northwestern Washington under a winter storm warning with an advisory. that is up for the, let me see if I can read that. And come on. The, what is that? The, Kang, the print shrinks whenever I go to look at it. The Okanagan National Forest, if I read that correctly, and some other. There's another national forest. The print is so small I can't read it, but you can see that's where the advisories are. Also, some wind advisories and high wind warnings down in parts of southwestern Oregon and into northeastern California, northern California, and you've got this band through the Sierras here, where you've got winter weather advisories and some winter storm warnings. I always like to read the advisories and warnings up in some of the mountainous terrain up the Cascades as you get up into the Pacific Northwest, because they'll put up a winter weather advisory for 18 to 24 inches. So I really don't know what their criteria is for a winter storm warning, but I guess 18 to 24 in a lot of those places is fairly commonplace. Across the South, really not too much happening. You still got some leftover flood warnings and flood advisories up from the rains of the last couple of days. And that really is about it. So I'm going to take the hazards off, and we'll take those hazards off, and we'll go down to the radar. We could put the radar on here. This will be the current radar. I'll show you the loop. The lighter blues, much of that is not really reaching the ground. It's aloft, so you have to really kind of focus on the green and particularly the darker greens. We had this first area of rain move out, but you can see there's still a lot of patchy precipitation, a lot of patchy rain back across southeastern Pennsylvania, down to south central Pennsylvania, over Maryland and northeastern Virginia. And that's why those flood watches continue. We've got rains back through Ohio and back through Indiana, parts of Kentucky, and then out over into the coastal waters. We're going to be waiting here for the upper low. That is really the driver. You know, as far as the wintry precipitation is concerned, it's the upper low that's going to trigger it off. It's a vigorous feature. There's a lot of cold air aloft. You're going to get some dynamic cooling, some vertical motion, and this is how you'll probably see the precipitation go over to sleet, some wet snow, and also some freezing rain, because it will be cold enough for some of the low-level temperatures to drop down below freezing in areas where the advisories are up. Here's the current surface map, and we've got a surface low in eastern Tennessee. This is all occluded out. We're going to probably see a secondary low eventually develop along the Delaware coast overnight and on Sunday. That's going to be coupled with that upper low. The upper low is going to energize it. It's not going to energize it a lot, but it might energize it enough. But again, it's really the dynamics of that upper low that are going to be driving the whole situation for Sunday. And then when you look up to the north, you've got this high sitting in southeastern Canada, but I don't know if you can see on the screen. It might be a little bit small, but when we look at these temperatures, and this was at 4 o'clock this afternoon, the readings up here were all in the upper 20s and to around 30. And the temperatures across upstate New York are in the mid 30s to low 40s. So this is not really cold air. When I think back to that November event, I can remember Albany sitting at 16, while temperatures down here were in the upper 20s. So you had much colder air that time around. So you're basically going to have to do it with respect to the dynamics. I don't think this is going to become a big deal. Every once in a while you can get, if you get something like this, when you see something like this that appears, say, in November or even in the latter part of October, you get these upper air features that are very cold and very strong, and they cool the atmosphere from the top down. Sometimes you can get surprises, and we've seen that happen often enough. Happened 10 days after Hurricane Sandy in parts of my area. You talk about the late October Halloween snowstorm of 2011. That was something that was relatively similar. It wasn't the typical, big cold Arctic high wedging down into the coast and low pressure coming up out of the Gulf states or developing off the East Coast, something like that. This is, again, it's all aloft. Here's the satellite loop tonight, and you can see the turning of the upper low. It's very well defined, and one of the changes in terms of what the weather models have been doing over the last few days, rather than weakening this upper low, it's maintaining its strength and actually is going to strengthen a bit as it nears the coast. So that's where you might get that last minute juice of cold top to bottom cold air that could produce some bursts of sleet and some wet snow. The first area of rain is with the cloud cover, the bright white clouds that are offshore. That's moving out. So now we're waiting for that second area. Got a bit of a subtropical feed beginning to set up across the Baja Peninsula into Mexico and into Texas. And we've got energy that's coming in to the Pacific Northwest because we're going to have another weather system later this week that looks to bring mostly rain to the eastern part of the United States. So here's the current radar loop. And you've got that arcing signature here. So the upper low is sitting back somewhere, just judging from the radar echoes, it's probably somewhere in southeastern Kentucky, northeastern Tennessee, somewhere in there, and you're getting these echoes rotating around it, and then you have the echoes that are off North Carolina and on up to off the New Jersey coast, and those are now pushing out more to the east. Again, that's part of that first area. So we've got more rain to deal with for my area here later tonight and for Sunday morning. That's going to be coming up from the area that's starting to blossom a bit in southeastern Pennsylvania, back through Maryland and northeastern Virginia. I'm going to have a miserable day here tomorrow in terms of weather because we're going to have temperatures probably in the upper 30s and rain in the morning and probably on and off through the afternoon and evening. And that just is, when you got that and you couple it with the northeast wind, that makes for a really ugly, miserable day. I think it's the most depressing thing is when it's raining and temperatures are in the middle 30s. It's just not. If it were just a little bit colder, snow lovers would be dancing in the streets. But you just don't have it. You just don't have enough of it. All right, so let me just show you what I did in terms of accumulations here. What I'm thinking. I didn't change anything from this afternoon. I went. I primarily went with the European, the colder European and the colder NAM, if only because of the fact that usually in these instances, the models, it winds up being colder than modeled. And that's something that happens often enough. And I don't see any reason why I should, vary from it. So this is the map that I drew earlier this morning. And maybe I'm a little bit aggressive, too far to the south, but in the area that I have between the black and the blue line, I'm talking about wet snow, maybe some areas. When you start to go closer to that blue line in northern New Jersey, you get to some elevated areas. Maybe somebody winds up with a slushy coating to an inch. Okay, but then as you move up into the northwestern counties where the advisories are up, Warren, western Passaic, northwestern Morris County, which is not in an advisory, but I've got it in a higher area for snow, and then on up into Sussex County, those northeastern counties in Pennsylvania, across into Orange County, Putnam, Dutchess, Sullivan, Ulster counties up near Poughkeepsie, and so on. I have this area where, elevation again. You get into some elevation that's up about 1,000 feet, or maybe even a little lower than that, but you're talking maybe some isolated 3 or 4 inch amounts. This is I guess the way to best describe it is I'm sort of uncomfortably comfortable with this idea with regards to accumulations, and along the immediate coast, it's going to be rain pretty much all the way through, unless at the end some of that cold air does wind up mixing down, which is possible, and that you could get some sleet or wet snow mixing in. Let me put it this way: if you start seeing sleet and snow mixing in and you're on Long Island, or if you're in New York City, or down south of Route 78 in New Jersey, That's a pretty good sign telling you that those areas that are north and west in elevation are probably getting more than what they bargained for. So that's one of the things I'm going to be looking at. One of the, um, clues just by simply looking out my window. Uh, the windows for weather people do come in handy every once in a while. And sometimes we do tend to forget to look outside and see what's actually going on. So we'll jump now. Gonna go. Let me go a little bit wider so I can put the upper air on, because that really is the most important thing through all of this. And here we have, as of this is the GFS at 2 a.m. It's a little too early for the new NAM, so I think I'll just go back to the old NAM model. And let me bring that paint box back up so we can illustrate this just a little bit. Hang on there, folks. Whoops. There we go. Okay. All right, so there's what the upper air looks like. Split flow. When I say we have a split flow, we're talking about two jet streams that are dominating the weather picture rather than one. You've got a southern jet that's carrying the weather system in question, and that is this system right here. This is the upper low that we're talking about. And then you have the second jet, which is running across southern Canada. And actually, you see that where it rises there, there's a little bit of a ridge right in there. And this is responsible for the surface high that I showed you on the map earlier. So from this, you're going to start to see cold air draining down. There's snow cover here in this area, so that kind of helps keeping things a little bit colder. That cold air will be draining down overnight. You'll start seeing the temperature kind of inch down a degree an hour, or a degree or two a degree or so every couple of hours. Right now, I'm sitting here at where I am at. I'm at 49, so I've got 10 degrees to go to get to 39, and the inland areas are going to get colder than that. This upper low is going. There's also another short wave in the northern jet stream way back into Minnesota. These two systems are so far apart that there's no chance that they're going to phase together. That northern shortwave, when it drops down, is going to just basically pick this up and kick it out to the northeast. And it's probably going to energize it a little bit. Not a lot, but a little bit. It certainly doesn't look like it's going to be weakening, which is what models were doing back earlier in the week. But that upper low, as we watch it, now you're going to have a surface low that's going to develop because of this, moves across North Carolina, Southern Virginia. This is going to bring rain here to the coast tomorrow morning. Is going to bring an area of rain up northward. And then that upper low actually strengthens as it moves over Chesapeake Bay and then heads out off the New Jersey coast. And it continues to strengthen once it gets east of New Jersey, south of Long Island. It actually strengthens quite a bit. So it's from this dynamic action that's going on that you're going to see the inland areas suddenly starting to cool from the top of the atmosphere down. If you notice up near Lake Superior, there's that northern stream shortwave. It never phases with it. It just kind of that shortwave actually strengthens as it drops into New England on Monday. This is going to bring a quick shot of colder air into the Northeast, and it also kicks out the system in question and kicks it away. So we'll bring the surface map up here, and we'll start with the NAM, and then we're going to go to the GFS, and then we'll look at the long range. So the maps are loading, so it's just going to take a little bit of time here. And let's see, I can back it up. It's loading it's loading backwards. Now we'll start with, come on. Okay, good. So we can start with 10 o'clock tonight. It matches up to the radar pretty well. from what we saw a little earlier. This is how the NAM sees the radar, and there's that rain that comes up the coast into southeastern New York and through New Jersey. And now about 7 a.m. you start to see these pockets of freezing rain and sleet, and then the surface low near Cape May starts to strengthen a bit, and gets kicked out eventually to the east. You can see that area of snow that blossoms out on the northwest side. The 18Z kind of backed off a little bit as far as the area of frozen and freezing precipitation. That could be just a function of the 18Z model run. The 12Z was much more aggressive. So, this is where forecasters have to be careful. I usually tend to get, I have found that over the years, with me anyway, that my initial forecast that I make comes out to be the better one. I mean, there are times when I have to change, but I don't like to change every 6 hours after we get a new model run. I'd rather just change it, when I absolutely have to. So I didn't really see anything here that said, you better adjust it one way or the other. But this is, again, I don't see this becoming a huge deal for my neck of the woods. Now, it's quite possible that up through New Hampshire and into Maine, as the slow really gets going and heads towards the southern part of Nova Scotia, at least in the world according to the NAM, that there is some decent snows that return for New Hampshire, and of course for Maine, where it snows all the time, and that low winds up going over Nova Scotia. So it looks like most of the snow is going to wind up being north of there into New Brunswick. New Brunswick must be an incredible place, because it just basically snows there from mid-November to April. It just never stops. And you can see, by the way, as that low strengthens and the next high comes in from the Great Lakes in response to that strengthening New England shortwave, the gradient on Monday in the east is going to be, in the northeast in particular, is going to be pretty tight. So it is going to be breezy to windy at times on Monday after the low goes by and until the high settles in. And looks like the weather should be relatively calm and quiet, at least through early Thursday, before we start to see the next change. And for that, we're going to go back to the upper air. I'll load that up. Just give it some time. Maps, as always, courtesy of tropicaltidbits.com, which is I think should be your go-to site to look at weather models. All right, these maps are loading, so I can go take it at least back to 48 hours. So this is for Monday. You're getting rid of the system that is going through on Sunday. Now we've got a bit of a ridge, not an overly strong ridge, but nonetheless we do have a ridge here that builds in the east as the next trough, that system coming into the west. You got troughing down. Again, that southern stream wants to be really active. The northern stream, the problem is that the flow is also from the Pacific. You don't have that Canadian connection of cold air. So here's where you have models actually phasing. All right, so that's what I mean by phasing. If you watch the northern stream system and the southern stream system, they phase together here with a trough right in the middle of the country. This is Wednesday night. So you've got ridges on both coasts and a trough in the middle, and that trough really digs into the Tennessee Valley. So you got a wrapped up cutoff low and a strong southerly flow along the East Coast. So you're going to have some kind of deepening low out of this that's going to bring some heavy rains into the east later Thursday into Friday morning. I think it could move along. Weather conditions may start improving Friday afternoon, but this is a pretty strong system here for Thursday into Friday. Then that pulls out. And then you got some more energy that tries to come in. The models are struggling with whether they should bring, a weak ridge into the east, but there's some weak short waves that are embedded in the flow. And one happens to come along about Christmas Day. The question will be whether it'll be cold enough for snow. In some areas, I think it might be. It's not a strong system at all. It's just sort of a weak system that we're playing with here in the longer term for Christmas. We'll come back to that shortly. I want to go now. We'll take a look at what the surface is doing here. The European was really about the same with this. I didn't notice any any big differences with the second system. It's colder with the first system, so it has a colder solution than the GFS does. Here is the next system for Thursday starting to rev up. You've got a low in central Kentucky. You got all this Gulf moisture. The Gulf's going to open up with rains shooting up the coast uh, during Thursday and Thursday night. There's a 91 low in eastern Kentucky, and there might be some snow on the backside of this. There is going to be some cold air that's going to funnel down on the backside of that trough. So the models are showing some snow in parts of Kentucky, Tennessee, Indiana, and Michigan. We'll visit that in the coming days to see what that winds up doing when we get a little bit closer. And then the low intensifies to a 982 low in western New York. It's going to get windy here for this system in the east. You're going to have a strong south-southeast wind ahead of it, and then they'll go southwest and then westerly. So it's going to get rather windy with this for the end of the week and into the next weekend. That's a pretty strong low that heads into Quebec, a 976, 974-ish low. That is then followed by a weak system that moves up through upstate New York and the northern Great Lakes on Sunday. And then you have a little bit of energy there. You can see it here. It just kind of comes out. It's very weak. Models trying to do something with precip, some light precip with a weak low on Christmas Day. There's a little bit of cold air trying to come down from the Great Lakes and from Lake Winnipeg. You see that high there that's sort of trying to push in. Maybe it pushes in a little more. Maybe this whole thing winds up being a bit flatter. So I still think we do have the chance for something happening on Christmas Day. Maybe it'll be snow. Maybe it won't be. But the system does look to be on the weak side. And after that, the models, judging from what they've been doing today, not kind of changed a bit from yesterday. I don't like what I'm seeing. If you're a snow lover, you're not going to like this pattern going into Christmas week. But that it may not. This is what the model snapshot is today. We don't know that that's going to stay that way. But one of the things that we've been talking about is that East Pacific oscillation, trying to get it, has to go negative in order to establish a cold air connection, and it tries to do that, but it doesn't appear to succeed in the long haul because you do wind up with the model wanting to do all this troughing out in the west. And you see it here. You're getting that amorphous trough again from the Gulf of Alaska back to the Aleutians and back over Alaska and over the Arctic regions. There's a limited amount of cold air that you can get in a pattern like this. You do have some flow from Canada, but it only comes in near into the Great Lakes and grazes the Northeast in the longer term, if this is correct. And we don't know that it is. It could be, this could be a couple of hiccups on the model. It's out 16 days, but I would just say that you'd have to view it with the same amount of skepticism as you would probably view it if you wound up with a pattern that was favorable for cold weather and snow. If that's what you're looking for. So still no, we still have no certainty as to where we're going with this in the long term, and I still think there's room in the atmosphere to maneuver for those of you who are probably rooting and jumping up and down for the possibility of a white Christmas. So I'm going to come back over to the chat board here, and let me just bring this down, put my little Patreon box over there, and join all of you on the chat. Thank you, by the way, taking time out of your Saturday evening to come on board here. And there we go. I just love YouTube's been and Google have been doing some system cleaning, and it's just been frustrating to say the least because they change all the settings when they do that, and I don't remember that I don't remember that uh, to go back and rechange all the different settings that I got to change. It's my problem and not yours. So big hello to everybody on board. I'm seeing a few people here haven't seen in a while, or some first timers. Marble races, welcome. You'll probably I'm on the blue line. Okay, good. I'm glad. Uh, Heles, I don't. I think you told me the other day how to pronounce this. Uh, Beloy. DC's been raining all day. You guys got a lot of rain. You went a lot of days. You just had a streak where it hadn't rained in a while, and then all of a sudden, kaboom! You got some rain, and you missed out on the snow last week too. I think I saw somewhere it was like 18 days in a row with no rain, and you finally made up for those 18 days for sure. And it is a lot of areas in the Mid-Atlantic and in the Southeast. Johnny Quest, one of my regulars, can attest to this, having their rainiest years on record with 100-inch plus amounts in a number of cities in the Carolinas. That's just phenomenal. By the way, one of my viewers posted a comment on one of my videos the other day. John Smith, or at least that's what he goes by, but he compiled a very interesting statistic as far as New York City is concerned. He went back, and every single year that New York City has exceeded 60 inches of rain, which is what we're about to do, in every year that we've exceeded 60 inches of rain, the winters have been below average in terms of snowfall. There's so far it's 8 for 8 on that number. Now it could just be it's a very, very small data set. It could just be a um, a series of coincidences that you had eight, those 8 winters just happened to produce below average snowfall. Most winters in this area, more than 60% of the winters, 65% of the winters are below average. So that could be kind of coincident to that. On the other hand, it could also be saying that the patterns that create conditions that produce very heavy rainfalls are also the patterns that are that are warmer and produce less snows in a given winter. So it's a very interesting statistic. It is 8 for 8. I There was a statistic that my colleague Joe Rayo had worked on for the month of December, where if New York City got at least 3 inches of snow in the month of December, the snowfalls for the winters would be above average. And that worked perfectly up until the last three, I believe the last 3 winters, or the last two of not the last 3 winters, but if you go back in the last 5 years, 3 of those winters produced less than 3 inches of snow in the month of December for New York City. And those winters wound up being above average in snowfall. So it worked until it didn't. And then I actually took that concept and went around and pulled some statistics from different cities. And apparently it was just one of those odd things that happened to work just for New York City. It didn't work for Philadelphia. It didn't work for Washington. Didn't work for Albany. Didn't work for Boston. I even changed the numbers around, and in some places I made them lower, some places I made them higher. It just was one of those perfect coincidences that occurred. And Johnny Quest, you had another 2 to 3 inches of rain, and more rain for tonight and tomorrow. You got that right. And Helise Beloy, 61.34 inches for Washington D.C., the rainiest year on record. That's incredible. And Wilmington over 100 inches. Scott Briller, that is correct. Kathy Albano, nice to see you here. And you're in Hyattsville, Maryland, and right near D.C. That's Helise. Good to know. I love D.C., by the way. Nick Cortese, you're reacting to the recent weather we just had, because if you think back a couple of weeks ago when it was really cold, you had the opposite question. So for the umpteenth time, I'm not a long range guy, so I don't know whether what it means that we have this warm weather now. I think it's a legitimate break from the 8-week pattern that was in place since mid-October. So that pattern's kind of taken a breather. when we have pattern breaks like this, sometimes they last a couple of weeks or they last a little bit longer. It hasn't really been all that warm. We're warm today. It's been, a few degrees above normal. It's not blowtorch warm in the east, and it's really not going to be. It's just that the overall pattern is not going to be able to bring down shots of cold air that are going to have staying power. So that's it as far as that is concerned. And you're impressed with Charlie Baker. You're impressed with my typing and spelling skills. What did I misspell? Did I misspell something? I do type very, very quickly. Sometimes my fingers are running ahead of my mind, and I do make spelling errors. I try not to, but I do make them. Uh, Trying to call on for a white Christmas. Do Bobby Whitaker, do prefer all the snow to fall on Christmas Eve or Christmas Day if you could choose? A good question. I think for me, I'd like to see it on Christmas. I had a last year was I was up in Connecticut at my daughter's house, and she's up in northern Connecticut. And last year we had a system for Christmas Eve, and if it rained along the immediate coast, it was snow just inland. For those of you who live in my area, it was from 287 north. You had snow on the ground Christmas morning. Well, where my daughter was, we had every bit of 4 inches, and it all fell overnight. And that morning, I woke up Christmas morning. It was beautiful. If you go to my Facebook page, I actually have a picture of that morning right around sunrise. It was still snowing, and it was actually snowing rather hard right before sunrise. It was like a postcard. That was beautiful. Then the snow stopped, and it was easy to it got easier to travel during the day. The sun came out. It was really windy, but it was a winter day for sure. I guess I would prefer it at night and during a time where there's not a whole lot of folks traveling around. Um, the PNA, the Pacific North America Index, is going to be going negative. Who just had that? I just saw that. Uh, let's see. Bundeswehr Deutschland. I hope January will be cold in Texas because the rest of the month looks warm for Texas, near 70 Christmas Day, and you're not happy. I don't blame you. Where in Texas are you? I'm kind of curious. Jess Harden. Thank you for the kind words. I really appreciate it. I try my best. You know, I don't always hit home runs. I try to, but I don't always. And we'll see if tomorrow's forecast works out. Maybe I'm a little bit too high. We'll see. These upper lows can often be problematic because. Oh, thank you. That's because you told me. I'm sorry. It's laissez, la, laissez, laissez. Gotcha. Okay, laissez, and baloi, laissez baloi. Okay, I got it. I just don't remember all the time. So if you may need to nudge me a couple of more times. Okay. So please forgive me if I do forget. Lasse Baloi. Awesome. Uh, Jess Hard, December 9th last year, 9 inch. You had 9 inches. It's funny. When I was building my map today, I happened to notice that on my snow map, usually when I save it, let's see, snow. I'm gonna just pull it up. 12, 1, 6. So I happen to notice that the last 2 years, around the 15th, 16th, we had I have a snowfall forecast map for the 12, 13, 2016, and I'm just taking a look to see what that looked like. Oh, very interesting. It was another light event, but it was heavier inland. And then there was another one on, I hesitate to put it on the screen, if only because if somebody's coming on for the first time and they wind up seeing it, they're going to think that this is the forecast for right now, and it's not. So that was in 16. I have one because I usually put the date on it. So there was one last year. It looked like it was a coastal low, and this was a 2 to 3 inch snowfall forecast for coastal New Jersey and Long Island, 1 to 2 north and west, and a coating to an inch in the northwesternmost counties and into eastern PA. That was last year. So it's 3 years in a row that around this time in the middle part of December that we had some kind of winter weather going on. Um, oh, happy birthday to the granddaughter, Chris Alley. Good to see you on here, Robert Sabatino, watching us from Florida. Um, welcome tonight. Good to see you on here. Kurt, are we getting snow? Where are you, Kurt? You got to tell me where you are. Um, uh, the Siberian snow cover. Okay, I'm just trying to. It's Lasse. Okay. Siberian snow cover. It was kind of subpar through most of October, and then it accelerated right toward the end of the month and finished closer to the highs than the lows. One of the things that Dr. Judah Cohen, um, with regards to Siberian snow cover, one of the points that he made for this year was whether the um, the whether a front end loaded fast snow growth or the back end loaded, whether that impacts the winter or not. That's something that he posed as a question. That perhaps the burst toward the end of the month maybe delays. I don't know. It's these are all look all these things, these theories that we look at. You look at stats. You try to find some correlations. It's very, very hard to do. I have found many times that once you figure out, once you look at data and you see once you look at data and you think you found a correlation and you start to use it as a forecast tool, then uh, you suddenly will discover that correlation doesn't work. The December 3 inch rule worked for New York City until it didn't. Okay. The Siberian snow cover rule worked until it didn't. And there's a whole bunch of other rules like that that you could say worked until it didn't. Okay, Joey, you are, you know, just so you know, we don't do conspiracy theories on this channel, on my channel. We don't talk, we don't do flat earth stuff, harp stuff, spraying stuff, anything like that. So just be advised. If you keep on that angle, there are the moderators on this board will cut you off. All right. So just okay. You've noted that. Okay, good. I'm glad. Right. The New York snow rule worked until they started salting 4 feet of salt on the roads. I know. It is hilarious after the overreaction from the November 15th snowstorm by politicians is just insane. Um, I get the anger that ensued, although I don't get all of it because of the fact that, I mean, at least from my standpoint, warned for days that regardless of how much snow was going to fall, that the rush hour was going to be a horror show on that Thursday. Apparently, that message never did get out. So it boiled down to the fact that, if you check your local municipalities, and I've said this before also, if you check your local municipalities and your local towns, I guarantee you they do not budget for snow removal in the month of November. They just don't. So there was no money to spend. So they couldn't send out crews because they'd have to authorize overtime, and they are very loath to authorize overtime. So that really is the reason why they didn't have anybody out there. The winter weather advisories were certainly out there long enough, and in a typical winter, when the winter weather advisory goes up, they're supposed to go out and salt. So it was a budgetary thing. They just, they didn't want it. They had to authorize overtime, and they didn't want to do it. And they took a chance that it would all change to rain relatively quickly. And guess what? It didn't, and it didn't in a big way. Ryan, I don't really see too many blocking signatures into the first couple of days of the new year. The only thing is that the NAO is forecast to remain close to neutral, slightly negative or slightly positive over the next 2 weeks from this morning's, based on this morning's GFS run, the ensemble run. So that probably keeps it from getting too warm here in the east. It allows for some shots of cold air. Now, again, that was the snapshot from last night. Tonight's 0Z run may provide us with a different snapshot. Meanwhile, I'm going to do a quick check here because this is about the time that the plumes come out, and they are out. So, but they oftentimes take a little while to load. They usually come out around 8:45, which is where we are at now. All right, so let's see. I'm gonna give you the link to this. Okay, so if you're really into weather, these are from Stony Brook University, and you can go on the map and pick various points, and it's an ensemble model from Stony Brook. I think there's 26 or 28 different members, and they forecast um, snow, temperature, and precip amounts, and a few other things. So we like to use it in the wintertime. We call them the plumes because I don't know, they look like plumes, I guess. Yeah, but I'll bring it up on the screen so you guys can see it. This is just out, and one of the things now what's up here in front of you at the moment is temperatures. Okay, the temperature profile going through the next 96 hours. The scale of the temperatures are on the side. The blue line is the 32-degree line, and you can see it there. And the model, the SREF model, the black line is the average temperature. I just happened to hit New York City, and you'll notice that the temperature actually rises, gets down to the mean temperature gets down to the upper 30s tomorrow morning. They have it rising up into the low 40s and then dropping down where it goes below freezing by about 9 or 10 o'clock tomorrow night. So that, um, you know, I put the link up there. What I do with them is I don't always look for the absolute number. They may not even be very useful here for this event. But if I hit total snow, it'll give you all the different members that produced snow, and then the black line again is the average. So, for example, in New York City, which I just put up the snow forecast from these models, it gives a mean of 2/10 of an inch of snow. The highest amount being produced by one member is just under 2 inches. Uh, 7 members are on here that are on so far. I have all the boxes checked off. These are all the different members. If you see on the side, you may not be able to see it there, but you see on the side, these are all the different model members. So I have all of them checked off. So this is the Snowfall Predictor. If you take your mouse and you move it over the circle, it'll actually give you a number. But when you go down to the bottom, you'll see there's a map you can zoom in on and pick different points. So we'll go to White Plains. And White Plains, it gives about a half an inch of snow. This is actually double from what it gave earlier today. Poughkeepsie gives 6/10 of an inch of snow. I believe that's Monticello, and not all the data is in. That's when you get that blank screen. Let's see if Scranton is in there, and it is. It gives Scranton just 1.6 inches. Run up the Hudson Valley. We'll see if Albany's in there. Albany, it gives about an inch. In Western Mass, in Pittsfield, it gives about 1.06. You can see that there's a member here in Pittsfield, for example, that gives over 4 inches. It really is the outlier. And then you got a couple of them that give in around 3. But the way I like to use this tool is I go from run to run, and I look for the trend to see if the plumes are going up or they're going down. Now, technically, they are going up by giving 1/4 of an inch of snow in New York City. That's the area where I have, designated that you could see some sleet and snow mixing in. And I wouldn't think that it would be more than that. So at this point, we're here almost to Sunday. It's really just a matter of watching that upper low playing through. How much dynamic cooling are we going to get? Big question. I don't, and I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Um, I'm not sure if if this is going to play out into anything significant. What height in decameters is the upper low when it intensifies? Okay, so actually the height dropping would be the same thing as the pressure dropping. So it drops from 552 or 5,520 meters to 543. So that's 5,430 meters. That's a 90-meter drop. The usual rule that that we used to use was that you get about a six millibar drop in pressure with the surface low for every 60 meters that you lose. So like 552 to 546 would be a 6 millibar pressure drop for the surface low. So it drops about 1.5 times that. So you're talking about the surface low actually dropping about 9 millibars. So this is why the model, you see the models deepening the low from 1,006 or 7 into the 990s, into the high 990s. So that's pretty much how it works. I'm just seeing to get the last of you guys on the chat before we say goodbye. All right, so that pretty much covers it tonight. Okay, so all right, one last one here from Ryan Ford. I know you say on some events that there's the potential for upside. Do you think we can get an upside surprise in this event? I think it's possible that there could be a few places that do. As far as a widespread upside surprise, I would kind of lean against it. Okay, if we had more cold air around to play with, I would maybe have a different answer to that. But from what I'm seeing right at this moment, I'm not really overly thrilled with everything. So I could change my mind. Maybe tomorrow morning when I look at all the stuff, the dynamics might say, you know what? Maybe there is room for an upside surprise. If there were more cold air, I think your chances for an upside surprise would be much greater than what we have right now. We just don't have a lot of cold air to play with. It's all going to be manufactured from the upper low as it goes by. Do I consider this a cheap thrill? Yeah, I guess so. It's less than what we got in November, so yeah, I would say this is probably for snow lovers. It's a cheap thrill, but maybe in elevated areas north and west, maybe not quite so cheap. Okay, we'll just leave it at that. Okay, just real fast for those of you who are interested in a really complete weather experience where you can't live without it on a day-to-day basis, you might consider signing up to my platform on Patreon. I have the link on the descriptor to this live stream, or if you're watching it on a replay, the descriptor to this video, and I just put it on the chat board. A number of you that are on here tonight are also members. It's just $2 a month. You get live streams, not quite every day, but I try to do them every day. I don't always succeed, but you get live streams just for Patreon members, posts for just for Patreon members, some posts that are for both Patreon and non-Patreon members, but you do get a lot of stuff that the other folks don't get. Plus, you can message me anytime, and I will respond to you in a timely fashion. So the link is up there. Again, that is just $2 a month. For those of you who have an Android weather device, I'm sorry, an Android mobile device, I do have an app on Google Play. It's forecasting. Its emphasis is for the areas from northern New Jersey, the Hudson Valley, New York City, Long Island, and southern Connecticut. But I do put other things on there, including my feelings on the long range and other stuff. There's satellites, radars, and there probably will be an update to this app coming shortly with some new additions to it. I also have all the snow forecast maps up there for the entire East Coast, from the Carolinas all the way up to Maine, and going back into Western Pennsylvania and Western New York. So if you're a skier, those snowfall maps, you might, snowfall forecast maps, you probably like them, and you won't have to go from every National Weather Service website one by one to pull them up. They're all on one page, and this is free. So here's the app. There will be an iPhone version of this coming out shortly. I know I've been saying that for a while, but again, still have to just wrapping up the technical work on it, and hopefully in the next week or two, Apple will give the okay, and I'll be putting up the link there. And one other thing, if you want to support this channel in a very easy way that doesn't cost you a dime, and you shop on Amazon, you can do it by using my link. So I'm going to put that up there here. We are a participant in the Amazon Services LLC program, which is an affiliate advertising program designed to where you can link to Amazon and its affiliated sites, and Amazon will put a few cigars in my Christmas stocking if you shop on this link. It doesn't cost you a dime, and I appreciate it for those who do that. So Jess Harden, I just put the link up there to the app. So if you've got an Android device, you can go ahead and download it. It's absolutely free. All right, have a great evening, everybody. We'll probably be back tomorrow night to see what's going on and updating you on the weather for the week ahead in the long range. And maybe there'll be some snow on it for Christmas Day for you snow lovers. Take care. Good night, everybody.